They can tell you the exact day I started farming every project on my list. It is in a spreadsheet, next to the reason I picked it. There is no column for the day I would stop. I have looked over 4 other people's tracking sheets in the last year, and none of them had that column either. Everybody has an entry rule. Almost nobody has an exit rule. So projects sit on the list, quietly billing you in gas and in Sundays, months after they finished being an opportunity. Why I am the one saying this? I run mobile proxy lines and a rack of Android phones for a living. A SIM is about $10 a month. A modem depreciates at roughly $1.50 a month, and the powered hub carrying 30 ports was $150. I know when to retire a line because an invoice arrives every month and forces the question. A line that stops earning gets pulled, and the SIM goes somewhere it will, and I do not agonize over it for 7 months first. Farming has no invoice, nothing turns up to make you look. That absence is most of what this is about. The most expensive sentence in this hobby. One more season, I have said it. Everybody I know doing this has said it. It is the sentence you reach for when the honest answer is that you should have stopped in March, and it works on you because it commits you to nothing. One more season sounds like patience. What it does is spend another few months of gas and attention to protect money that is already gone. Patience and persistence are different things. I have argued on this channel that patience beats volume, and I still think that is right. A few wallets used genuinely across a long stretch will outscore 300 spun up over a weekend, because time is the one input you cannot fake. That argument carries a condition I did not make loud enough. Patience is what you owe a live opportunity. Persistence is the same behavior pointed at a dead one, and it looks identical from the outside. Same wallets, same weekly routine, same person telling themselves the boring version wins in the end. The only thing separating them is whether the thing at the other end still exists, which makes the actual skill telling those two apart. Almost nobody practices that one. The bar goes up and the pool does not. The first signal is arithmetic you can watch happen in public. A program sets a bar for qualifying, then raises it. More volume, more weeks held. An activity type that did not exist when you started. On its own, that is ordinary. And a bar rising early usually means the team is pricing out the obvious farming. What matters is whether anything on the other side of the trade moved with it. If the requirement doubles and the stated pool stays where it was, you have been asked to do twice the work for a slice that is being cut into more pieces. So watch the ratio rather than the bar. A bar that rises while the pool rises with it is a program still investing in you. A bar that rises alone is a program managing its cost. The criteria move backwards over work you already did. The second signal stings because it takes something away retroactively. Criteria change mid-season. I have covered why elsewhere. The short version is that teams build these programs before they have any usage data and patch them once real behavior shows up. That happens constantly and is not by itself a bad sign. The direction tells you something. A change that adds a new way to qualify from here on is a program still trying to grow. A change that reaches backwards and devalues activity you already did in good faith is a program shrinking what it owes. One of those is a rule update. The other is a budget decision wearing a rule update's clothes. When the second kind lands twice on the same program, I stop treating the first one as an accident. The silence has a shape. The third signal is about what a team goes quiet on, and it is narrower than it sounds. Teams go quiet all the time. A slow month on the block means very little, and reading meaning into a lull is how people talk themselves into and out of everything. The version worth noticing is selective. The account still posts. There are still integration announcements and a weekly update. What has vanished is any answer to the token question, specifically the questions that used to get answered. Somebody asks about timing in the Discord and gets moderator boilerplate. The same question 3 weeks earlier got a real reply from the team. That shift carries information, because it usually means a decision was made internally, and nobody wants to say it out loud. The fourth one is population, and it can happen while everybody involved behaves impeccably. If the eligible crowd grows faster than whatever is being handed out, your share shrinks while you work. No rule has to change. The shape of it is a program that got popular. A Quest platform lists it, a large account posts about it, and the participant count goes up by a multiple inside a fortnight. Nothing bad happened. The maths on your position got worse and will not recover. The ecosystem stops shipping. The fifth is the plainest one and the slowest to admit. Go and look at what is actually being built there, with the points program left out of it. The applications, the tooling, the projects that chose to launch on it. If the last few arrivals of any substance were all incentive programs, and the builders who were around a year ago have moved on, then what you have is a farm with a token attached. Any eventual distribution gets split between people who look exactly like you. Commit activity is a crude proxy and it can be gamed, so do not treat a graph as a verdict. A project where the only news is about points is telling you what it has left. Slow and over feel the same. Here is the distinction that costs the most, and it is why those signals matter far more together than alone. A slow project and a finished project produce an identical week. Nothing happens. The number goes up a little. You do your routine and you wait. Slow is completely normal. Teams miss timelines as a matter of routine, and a project that goes 8 quiet months and then ships is an ordinary event. If you cannot sit through a dead stretch, you should not be doing this. The trouble is that over feels exactly like slow, for as long as you are willing to keep reading it that way. There is no notification. No project has ever announced that the opportunity is finished. It stays quiet, and quiet is something you can interpret generously for years. So slow is always the default reading, and it stays the default until you make it earn that. The question worth putting to a project every so often is what would have to be true for this to be finished. Nothing is ever going to ask it for you. Write the exit before you have anything to lose. The fix is mechanical, takes about 5 minutes, and the timing of it is the whole point. When you add a project to the list, write 3 things down: the date you started, what you have spent so far, in money and in rough hours, and the condition under which you would stop. That third one has to be written before any sunk cost exists, because 9 months in you are no longer capable of writing it honestly. You will write a condition you already know will never trigger. Everybody does. I have done it. A stop condition is a fact about the world rather than a feeling. The qualifying bar has moved twice with no movement on the pool. The criteria have been revised backwards over activity I already did. No substantive answer to the token question in 90 days. The participant count has multiplied while the allocation has not. Nothing has launched on this chain in 6 months that was not an incentive scheme. Pick 2 of those and write them down. One on its own is too twitchy for a hobby where dead stretches are routine. 2 together is a pattern. Choosing what to farm in the first place is a separate job, and I have covered it on its own. This is the other end of the same list, and the end almost nobody writes. What the note actually does. The note predicts nothing. I cannot tell you which projects will pay, and neither can anyone else. What it does is move the decision to a moment when you can still make it. The version of you who has spent nothing is a far better judge than the version 11 months and several $100s deep, and the second one gets the call unless you take it away in advance. Then when the condition triggers, you stop. You do not renegotiate it. Renegotiating is the entire failure mode in one word. What I kept farming too long. I had a project on my list for about 7 months after I had stopped expecting anything from it. I can date roughly when I knew, because I can find the week I stopped mentioning it to other people who farm. The moment you quietly stop bringing something up, the assessment has already been made. I kept going anyway. Small weekly interactions, a few dollars at a time, on wallets I was maintaining anyway. Every week I had a reason, and every reason was true. The cost was small. I was already set up there. There might be a season 2. It would be a shame after 9 months. None of those were arguments about the project. All of them were arguments about my history with the project. The gas was the cheap part. What it really cost was the slot, because I run about as many projects as I can genuinely keep up with, and one of those places was held by something I had already privately written off. There is real arithmetic behind what that trade costs, and I am not doing it here. Things that are not signals. I want to be careful about the opposite error, because it is expensive too. A quiet month is not a signal. A delayed roadmap is not a signal. A founder posting less because they are heads down building is not a signal, and neither is the mood in a Discord, which is the least reliable instrument in this entire hobby. The signals worth acting on are structural. The ratio between what is being asked and what is on offer. The direction a rule change points, whether anyone is still building. You can check all of those against something. You cannot check a vibe. I have been wrong the other way as well. I dropped something early once over what I decided was a fatal rule change, and it went on to do fine for the people who stayed. An exit rule will not be right every time, and a rule that would have been right every time is a rule you have fitted to the past. The disclaimer meant literally, none of this is financial advice, and I am not going to predict what any token will be worth or when anything launches. I do not know. I am also not going to name a project and tell you it is finished. I do not hold that kind of certainty about anything, and the people who publish calls like that are usually positioned somewhere else. What I can tell you is that stopping is a decision you are allowed to make on your own evidence in advance, on a date you chose while you could still think clearly. Almost nobody sets themselves up to make it, which is why one more season keeps working. The tracking sheet, the exit note, and the full write-ups behind all of it are there. Everything is at airdropfarming.org. Subscribe for more on airdrop farming.